صلى الله عليك يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب نجاة الأمة يا غريب الغرباء يا مظلوم كربلاء السلام على من جعل الله الشفاء في تربته السلام على من الإجابة تحت كبته السلام على ساكن كربلاء فيا ليتنا ثم يا ليتنا كنا معكم سادتي يا سادتي فنفوز فوزا عظيما. علم الإمام جعفر بن محمد الصادق صلوات الله وسلامه عليه. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. صفوان فقال له عندما تزور جدي الحسين فصم 3 واغتسل. This is a conversation between our sixth Imam and one of his companions, Safwan, where our sixth Imam gives guidance or instructions to Safwan on how he should perform the Zyara of Sayyid al-Shuhada. It's a conversation between our sixth Imam and one of his companions, Safwan, where the Imam teaches him or instructs him on the etiquette of performing the Zyara of his grandfather, Sayyid al-Shuhada. For the Imam tells him, that as you make the intention to perform the Zyara, then fast for 3 days before you leave or you embark your journey for Zyara. And then he goes on to tell him from the mustahabbat of Zyara that make sure you perform the ghusl. And from what we understand, that to perform ghusl with the river of Furat has its own merits. For Imam taught Safwan to fast for 3 days and to put himself within a certain frame of mind when he is going for Zyara. And then he advised him to perform the ghusl. And out of the various or different numbers of ziyaras that we can perform for Sayyid al-Shuhada, our sixth Imam taught Safwan one particular ziyara, where Imam tells Safwan that as you take permission to enter into the sacred haram and you stand at the door and you look or you are facing the grave of Imam Hussein, you stand at his head, at his blessed head. At that time the Imam tells him to recite this ziyara. He says, address my grandfather Hussein by saying, Assalamu alayka ya waritha Adam sifwatillah. السلام عليك يا وارث نوح نبي الله. السلام عليك يا وارث إبراهيم خليل الله. السلام عليك يا وارث موسى كليم الله. السلام عليك يا وارث عيسى روح الله. السلام عليك يا وارث محمد حبيب الله. This salutation or this ziyara is popularly known as Ziyaratul Waritha. And within this ziyarah, the ziyarah al-waritha, there are treasures of ma'rifah and there are treasures of wisdom as to how we should understand the Imam. And from one perspective, you look at the way Imam as-Sadiq looks at Sayyid al-Shuhada. For indeed, to understand the status of a person, we need to contemplate upon the words that are used to describe that person. Why does, or what is the purpose of the ziyarah? When you say ziyarah, ziyarah in its linguistic terms refers to salutations, to send salam, which is why when we stand at the dhari or we stand at the grave of the ma'soom, we say Assalamu alayka ya, as per the text of this narration of the Imam, Assalamu alayka ya waritha Adam sifwatillah. This word Assalamu alayka is the common expression used to greet a person when you meet him. This is the Islamic nature of greetings. It is the Islamic natures of salutation when you meet a person. And you only use a salam when you are talking with a person directly, or that person is within your sight or within your reach of being heard. Which is why when you look at Sayyid al-Shuhada or when you recite the ziyarah of any of the Imams, you say Assalamu alayka. You don't say Assalamu alayhim. Why? Because the dhamir kaf, the pronoun kaf in the word alayka, for those of you who have studied Arabic grammar, you will be able to appreciate the fact that the kaf over here is a pronoun that refers to the mukhatab al-hadir. It means that you are speaking to a person who is present within your vicinity. Whereas if you said Assalamu alayhi, peace be upon him, this pronoun ha, the dhamir ha, is a dhamir that goes to the third party, which is away from the senses, yani from sight and from hearing. From here we understand the usage of the letter kaf and the fact that this is a salutation. Assalamu alayka or Assalamu alaykum is a salutation used between two people when they are in front of each other or one person can hear another. From this statement we are able to understand that when you go for the ziyarah of Sayyid al-Shuhada or the ziyarah of any one of the A'imma, you are speaking to them and they can hear you. You are in the presence of the Imam. Which is why in one of the traditions our sixth Imam narrates, where he speaks about the reality of performing the ziyarah of Sayyid al-Shuhada. And a part of this hadith where he describes Imam Hussein, our sixth Imam says, وَهُوَ يَنْظُرَ إِلَى زُوَّارِهِ وَهُوَ أَعْرَفُ بِأَسْمَائِهِمْ وَبِأَسْمَاءِ آبَائِهِمْ وَبِدَرَجَاتِهِمْ وَمَنْزِلَتِهِمْ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ. The sixth Imam says that Sayyid al-Shuhada sits on the right side of the arsh in the heavens and he looks down onto Karbala. He looks down to the place where his body was buried. He looks at the place where his companions are buried. And then he looks at those people who have come to perform his ziyarah. And he recognizes every person who comes to perform his ziyarah by their names. Not only does our Imam know the Zawar by their names, but by the names of their father. Not only does he know them by their lineage, but our sixth Imam tells us that Sayyid al-Shuhada recognizes and knows the reality of every person who comes to perform ziyarah. وَهُوَ يَعْرِفْ مَنْزِلَتَهُمْ وَدَرَجَاتَهُمْ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ. The Imam knows what is in your heart when you come for ziyarah. The Imam knows the reality of your iman when you come for ziyarah. And from this hadith, or from this tradition, not only are we able to understand our aqidah, our aqaid when it comes to life after death and the existence or the That yes, the existence of a realm beyond the realm of this world, where people in the other realm can interact with the people in this realm. And from here, this is on an aqaid level, and even from a fiqh level, you are able to reduce an ahkam shari or ahkam shari. For what reason? Over here, the tradition tells us that when you come into the Haram al-Sharif, the Imam can see you and knows the reality of your actions, of your past and of the future. Therefore, the ulama tell us that just like the way you would conduct your behavior in the presence of the Imam, if you lived during that lifetime, you must conduct yourself in a similar behavior when you're in the Haram. In front of the Imam, if you lived in 61 AH, you would not raise your voice, for example, or use obscene language in the presence of the Imam. Then the same holds when you are in the Haram Sharif of Sayyid al-Shuhada. Just like the way you would not have vague, useless talk in the presence of the Imam while you are in his company, the same applies in the Haram. For we have an understanding that when a person comes for Zyara, he is in the audience of our sixth Imam. How do we want to be perceived by the Imam when we are at his doorstep? And concepts such as these or beliefs such as these are beliefs that are warranted by the Quran. You have a look at the verse of the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about the martyrs. He says, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ الَّذِينَ كُتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ أَمْوَاتًا بَلْ أَحْيَاءٌ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ يُرْزَقُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, do not consider those who are slain in His way. Do not consider the martyrs to be dead. Rather, they are alive and they seek sustenance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is one of our points of dispute with the Nawasib. Like that Nasibi who would lead Salatul Jama'ah in Masjidun Nabawi. And once he was asked, what do you think, Ya Fulan, about the ziyarah or the salutation of Rasulullah? So this person turned around and said, well, to perform the ziyarah of the Prophet, my walking stick is more useful than that dead body. Wal-ayadu billah. This is why we persist that in reality these are the people who have performed the kufr at its basis. For him to think that the Rasulullah in himself has perished and existed, number one, is a flaw in his aqidah. Number two, to say that performing the salutation of Rasulullah is useless and the stick that he walks with is more useful than that. But they still go and lead Salatul Jama'ah in Masjidun Nabawi. To order or to negate this form of existence or to negate this form of aqaid which is warranted by the Quran is one side, but to go a step forward and destroy the graves of the successors of Rasulullah or the grandsons of Rasulullah is an injustice which we should not keep quiet to. And we need to make movements amongst ourselves. Well, Taban, when we speak movements, we are of the opinion and we are of the stance that the assumption is always we are working at a non-violent basis. But we need to make movements in the sense that we put ourselves in a position where our voices are heard and our opinions bear weight when it comes to foreign policy or when it comes to preservation of sacred sites that symbolize our madhab. And we need to make sure that we set the foundation for Jannatul Baqi' to be built again during our lifetimes. We need to take efforts to make sure that the Haramain in Samarra are built again. Don't we say, فَيَا لَيْتَنَا كُنَّا مَعَكُمْ فَنَفُوزَ فَوْزًا عَظِيمًا? Don't we say to ourselves, Ya Sayyid al-Shuhada, that if we were there in Karbala and we would have seen you surrounded by the enemies, we would have come forward and we would have saved you and we would have sacrificed our lives for your life. We would have defended you and your women against the enemies of Yazid. then that call is alive even today. And the destructions of these shrines, at least of Samarra, happened in our lifetimes. For where is the reconstruction of Samarra? Where is the reconstruction of Jannatul Baqi? Where are those Shi'as whose hearts burn for the dhulm of Ahlul Bayt and will stand up to ensure that we have the right voice and the right platform to see a Qubba built over Jannatul Baqi? These are issues that we collectively need to think about as a madhab. Who is there who will push forward the agendas of the Shia? Who is there to push forward the agendas such that the reappearance of our 12th Imam will be closer? And we are responsible towards this. Ya Subhanallah, acceptable for Hilton or McDonald's to be built, but not even a shade over the qabr of our Imam. For whether the sun is shining or the rain is pouring, the bodies of your Imam are exposed to that. Which heart that carries the love of wilayah accepts this? And all these steps to reach towards this great goal begins with ilm, begins with knowledge, begins with determination, begins with building a good reputation and channels of communication and networks with personalities outside our communities. Our fourth Imam used to say that if the people were aware of the treasures that are contained within our words, then they would gladly follow us. Our 11th Imam used to say, including with our 6th Imam, they used to say, Kunu lana zina wa la takunu alayna shina. He says, be for us a source of pride and do not be upon us a source of shame. When you look into the context of the hadith, we mean, Ya Imam, what did you mean be a source of pride for us? Let your interaction and your conduct with the outside world be a source of pride for your Imam. Mesh only through conduct, but through your sublime morals you push forward the agenda of Ahlul Bayt. Many times there is the misconception that in order for us to show our sublime conduct, we need to forsake and we need to forget and not raise those concerns that regard our madhab or that are particular for our madhab. Abadan. Through your good akhlaq, show the people the reality of your madhab. And this is something that the aql and the heart accepts as a global value. And the first proof for this was in the darbar of Yazid himself, La'natullah alayh, in Jami al-Amawi, when they came with the blessed severed head of Sayyid al-Shuhada. There was a Christian delegate who was sitting there. He was told, what is this? The people came forward and told him, this is the head of the grandson of Rasulullah, the Prophet of Islam. What did the Christian person say? He said, Ya Subhanallah. Or he says, weird, how strange is it that you people had the flesh and blood of the grandson of your prophet, you severed his head, whereas us in Christianity, we have the hoof of a donkey which Nabi Isa used to ride, and because this hoof is attributed to a donkey, and that donkey is something that Isa, our prophet, rode upon, we have preserved that hoof as a memory of our prophet. So woe be upon you that you had his flesh and blood and this is how you treated him. The aql accepts and acknowledges that we need to shun dhulm altogether. The aql acknowledges that to destroy the symbols of any other sect, regardless of at a theological level, if they are correct or not, Islam does not give us, the aql does not give us the authority or accept us to destroy those marks. Even if they are batil, for then what if they are on the truth and they are haqq? And we need to build this determination to move forward and push forward this agenda on a day like this, on days like this of Muharram. Use your azar to build your determination, and upon this build networks to move forward. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. I don't want to sound like I'm marketing any commodity or any product. But when it comes to ilm and it comes to spreading knowledge about our madhab, we have a publication from the Hyderi Islamic Center, 50 most common questions asked by Sunnis to Shias. And it's a debate over 50 topics where the madhab of Shi'ism or the Shia madhab is attacked. And this book, in a very delicate way, in a very summarized way, in a very concise way, replies back to these objections. For it would be a gesture of service towards the madhab and promoting the cause of Shi'ism if we all participated in purchasing these books, and more important, distributing them such that misconceptions are cleared. To come back to our topic of discussion, that when we said salam to our imams, this is in reference to a greeting to a person who is very much alive, and towards an imam who is absolutely aware of our actions and of our behaviors while we are in the sanctity of the haram. And this salam that is sent through a ziyarah, a person does not need to be in Karbala al-Muqaddas or in Baghdad or in Samarra or in Najaf al-Ashraf in order for him to be counted as a Zair. Our sixth Imam tells us that any person who says after faces the direction of the Qibla or faces towards Karbala, if every day with a clean heart or with a conscious heart he says Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah 3 times, then this salam reaches to towards Sayyid al-Shuhada, and he replies back by saying wa alayka as-salam. فَنَحْنُ at the very minimum during these days, we should send salam on Sayyid al-Shuhada at least 3 times. Record your name in the list of Sayyid al-Shuhada, that your thoughts and your bodies are with him. For the first definition of salam is on the basis that it is a greeting, and it is the Islamic way of greeting a person who is in your presence or whom you are in their presence, number 1. Number 2, Mufassirin have said that when you stand and you say Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah, over here the meaning of salam is not that you are greeting him. It is not in the form of tahiyya, but the word salam is taken from the word taslim, which means to submit to his command, which means when you stand on a Thursday night or whenever you recite your Zyara and you say Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah, in essence what you are doing is you are telling the Imam, Ya Abna, Ya Aba Abdullah, O grandson of Rasulullah, my words, my heart and my actions are in conformity with your words, your heart and your actions. There we have traditions within our school of thought, majority of them emanating from the sixth Imam. Some traditions state a person who goes to perform the ziyarah of Sayyid al-Shuhada, the reward is as if he has performed 1 Hajj. You find another tradition, it tells you the person who performs the ziyarah of Sayyid al-Shuhada, it is as if he has performed 1 Hajj and 1 Umrah. You find another tradition from the sixth Imam. All of these traditions are from the sixth Imam. Another tradition tells you that a person who performs the ziyarah of Sayyid al-Shuhada is as if he has performed 20 Hajj. Another tradition tells you that a person who has performed the ziyarah of Sayyid al-Shuhada is as if he has performed 1,000 Hajj and Umrah that are accepted. For from the Ahlul Khilaf, people came forward and they said, these hadith are all distorted. All these hadith are weak and are not acceptable. Ajib. Why? Because each one of them contradicts each other. How do they contradict? One hadith from a single imam. Sometimes it tells you Zyara is equivalent to 1 Hajj. Sometimes it tells you is equivalent to 20 Hajj. Sometimes it's equivalent to 1,000 Hajj. Why can't your imam make up your mind, for example? Because the imam has contradicted himself on the number of times that the Hajj or the Zyara is equivalent to a Hajj. They say that these hadith are fake altogether. There should be one standard number. We reply back to them by saying, understand the concept behind the Zyara, the differences in the rewards for the Zyara of Sayyid al-Shuhada show that a person's reward is proportional to his ma'rifah of Sayyid al-Shuhada. For a person who has a higher level of understanding of Sayyid al-Shuhada, his thawab is 20 Hajj. A person who has a higher level, his thawab is 1,000 Hajj. A person whose orders, whose actions are in conformity with the actions of Sayyid al-Shuhada, for him, they tell us, the person who visits Imam Hussein, knowing his rights, then for him the thawab of the Zyara is equivalent to 1,000 Hajj and 1,000 Umrah performed in the company of Rasulullah. And in addition to this, 1,000 Hajj and Umrah performed in the company of Rasulullah, his reward is 1,000 jihad performed in the company of Rasulullah. For over here, the reward of the Zyara that a person carries contingent upon his ma'rifah of Sayyid al-Shuhada, and to a big part, the ma'rifah of the Zyara of Sayyid al-Shuhada is denoted by our obedience towards his action, which is taslim. Therefore, when a person goes and stands in front of Imam al-Hussein or recites the Zyara from home, he needs to ask himself, for the idea is that when a person says, Assalamu alayka ya mawlaya ya Aba Abdullah, he needs to see or contemplate over how truthful he is in his words. We said that the Imam watches us when we come for a Zyara and is aware of what is inside our hearts. So if I know that my Imam is aware of what is in my heart when I say Assalamu alayka, I need to sit back and contemplate, are my actions truthfully a reflection of the orders of Imam Hussein? Or am I just empty words? If I want to know how Sayyid al-Shuhada perceives me, then I need to contemplate on this single word. The Imam is much more generous than to not reply back to the salam of any person who comes. Abadan, the salam and the Zyara of Sayyid al-Shuhada is accepted from everyone. The mercy of our Imam is all-encompassing, such that when a person comes towards Sayyid al-Shuhada, even if he had the sins of the entire world on his back, if he came towards Sayyid al-Shuhada with a true, sincere heart, the Imam would accept his salam and forgive him. I'd not let anybody cheat you in your Aqidah that only the good people, their salams are accepted by Sayyid al-Shuhada. If there is any stimulus or impetus to change, then that changes the Zyara of Sayyid al-Shuhada. And just real quick, between the brackets, a passing point over here. Many times there are objections that are put forward that people think that they can perform, you see people who are not strong in their furu'ud din, but they perform the matam, they perform the Zyara, they cry for Sayyid al-Shuhada. And many times it is said, or an objection is raised, how can these people even cry for Sayyid al-Shuhada when they don't even pray? Their tears are not accepted, and. There is an adab and there is an akhlaq when it comes to dealing with the people involved within the commemoration of the legacy of Sayyid al-Shuhada. There is an adab and an akhlaq on how you treat somebody who has come to weep Imam Hussein. Our conversation over here is not whether crying or weeping for Imam Hussein or doing matam is more important than salah. But this is something that is absolutely clear. And I respect you people in that you already know this, and it's not something that needs to be talked about. The aql knows this. But when you find a person, for example, who does matam or cries but doesn't pray, do we have the right to rebuke him for crying for Sayyid al-Shuhada because he doesn't pray? When you find a person who goes for Hajj, millions of people go for Hajj, but you don't see them in the other aspects of Furu'ud-Din as strong. People who go for Hajj, from amongst them you will find those who don't pray, those who don't give zakat, those who don't even give khumus, and they go for Hajj. Yet, do we tell them don't go for Hajj or your Hajj is not accepted because you're not strong in your Furu'ud-Din? La, what do? The same thing with Sayyid al-Shuhada. We do not have a right to tell a person that the tears that you have shed will not be accepted by Imam Hussein. Who are we to judge? These tears that are shed are not shed for me, nor for my family or my father or mother. These are tears shed for Sayyid al-Shuhada. So leave this action between him and Sayyid al-Shuhada. We do not need to rebuke them or drive them away. Ya Ajib, this is a person who has come to the mosque to weep for your Imam because he has some love for him, and even him we want to throw him away from the center? Ajib, you want to have unity with a person who hates your Imam, and over here you have somebody who loves your Imam and you're kicking him out of the center. Why are you crying? Don't come here and cry unless you pray your salah. Shuno, who gave us the right to make this hukum? There is an akhlaq and an adab to deal with situations like this. Amra bil ma'roof and nahy anil munkar has prerequisites and has a certain manner in which they should be conducted. If I see a person who cries for Imam Hussein or does his matam, but on the other hand he's not strong in his furu'ud-din, I should not rebuke him for doing matam. Rather, I should go to him and use his love for Imam Hussein to attract him towards matam. Attract him towards salah. Use his love for matam to attract him towards salah. Not to push him away altogether. For there is a way to deal with situations. And when you look into the hadith, you will see that this is the respect that everybody commands or deserves when they come to mourn Sayyid al-Shuhada. Not because of who they are, but because of whom they have come to mourn. So we need to be careful in these issues. Correct, it's not right to leave out salah for any purpose. But that doesn't mean we should drive them away. When you stand and you rebuke a person harshly, what happens? He will leave the center altogether. Then he will not pray and neither will he cry for Sayyid al-Shuhada. Musiba ala musiba. If there is a chance for a person to come to the right path, maybe it is the barakah of these tears that Imam Hussein himself will invite him or inspire him to pray. We need to be careful in the way we address these issues and how we address a person whose heart is grieving for Imam Hussein. This is the key, how to deal with people who have a love for Imam. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. For we said the meaning of taslim or the meaning of salam comes from the word taslim. Obedience to the Imam, which is demonstrated through our words and our actions and through our hearts. And we need to contemplate over how is it our Imam will perceive us. Does the Imam perceive me as a munafiq? I know the answer in my heart. When I say, Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah, have I trampled upon the rights of the other people and then come forward and say, Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah? This is a point of contemplation. And every action that we perform in Islam requires contemplation, just like the ziyarah. This is in regards to the word salam, and time is racing against us, for I will briefly talk about 2 points from Ziyaratul Waritha. And this is in regards to the meaning of the word warith. Why is it that our sixth Imam, when he wants to address his grandfather Sayyid al-Shuhada, he addresses him by saying, Assalamu alayka ya waritha Adam sifwatillah, and then describes him as being Ya waritha Nuh Nabiyillah, Ya waritha Ibrahim Khalilillah, and the warith of Isa, Musa, and the warith of Rasulullah. Why does our sixth Imam use the word warith? And what does the word warith mean? And from here we understand the adama of Sayyid al-Shuhada and the scope of the revolution of Sayyid al-Shuhada. The word warith means successor or inheritor. If you look at it from the word inheritor, then what Imam Sadiq is saying, that Imam Hussein is the inheritor of Adam and the inheritor of Nuh and the inheritor of Musa, Isa until Rasulullah. What does the Imam inherit? What is the relationship between Imam Hussein and these prophets that are mentioned in Ziyaratul Waritha? Inheritor can be understood from 2 points, one that is literal and one that is metaphorical. In terms of literal inheritance, a person who inherits from one person to the other, at a literal level, we have from our traditions that the A'imma have inherited certain personal possessions from previous Anbiya. For example, you have the tradition of the sixth Imam that says, وَأَنَّ عِنْدِي لَرَايَةِ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ الْمُغْلِبَةِ وَأَنَّ عِنْدِي لَخَاتَمْ سُلَيْمَانَ وَأَنَّ عِنْدِي أَلْوَاحْ مُوسَى وَعَصَاهُ. The sixth Imam says that I have with me the flag of Rasulullah, yani the flag that was used in Badr and in Uhud, and with me I have. The Imam says that with me I have as an inheritance, I have the flags of Rasulullah that he used in Badr and in Uhud. With us we have the ring of Nabi Sulaiman. We inherited it from the prophets down the generations. The Imam says that I inherited the scrolls of the Torah that were revealed on Nabi Musa at Mount Sinai. He says with us we have the staff of Musa with which we separated the river Nile. All of these material possessions, tangible possessions, are possessions that are inherited from one prophet to another until they reached Rasulullah, from Rasulullah till Amir, from Amir to Imam Hassan Hussein, all the way until our 12th Imam, which is why it is narrated in our traditions that when the 12th Imam appears at Makkah, he will be wearing the ring of Nabi Sulaiman, he will be holding the staff of Nabi Musa, and he will be wearing the shield or the armor of Rasulullah. And one of the properties of the armor of Rasulullah is that no other person can wear it and will fit in it, because the body of Rasulullah is unique, and only those who follow in his line can be, or from his lineage, or within the diameter or circle of Isma' Tahara can wear that armor. For one of the ways in which our 12th Imam will prove his imamah is that he will come forward with the armor of Rasulullah and say, is there anybody who can wear this armor? Millions of people will come and try and wear the armor. You'll see the armor will not fit anyone except the 12th Imam. And this in itself will be one of the ways through which people acknowledge the reality of the Imam and separate him or distinguish him from the rest of the Dajjal. For the word inheritor or warith can be taken at its literal sense, inheritor of tangible possessions of the previous prophets. This is number one. Number two, inheritor can be carried at the level of a metaphorical context, meaning from metaphor that the Imams are the successors or have inherited certain qualities and characteristics from the previous Anbiya, which is why Rasulullah is narrated to have said, according to a tradition of Allama Shafi'i, one of the scholars of the Ahl Sunnah. He says, Rasulullah mentions, Rasulullah stated once, Man arada an yanzur ila Adam fi ilmih, ومن أراد أن ينظر إلى نوح في حكمتي وعلى إبراهيم في حلمه فلينظر إلى علي بن أبي طالب. Rasulullah says, if a person wanted to imagine or to see Adam with all the knowledge that Adam had, if a person wanted to see Nuh in the wisdom that Nuh had, if a person wants to see Ibrahim and see how much forbearance he had, then he should look at the face of Amirul Mu'mineen. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa ajil farajah. For the awsiya and the Imams of Ahlul Bayt are those people who inherited the sublime qualities from the previous prophets. For inheritor, Imam Hussein, just like the way Amirul Mu'mineen inherited the knowledge and the akhlaq and the conduct of the previous Anbiya, Sayyid al-Shuhada also inherited their conduct. Because at this level, when we want to transfer a general behavior or generalize a certain behavior between two individuals, so long as they fall within the same classification, then the property of one is applicable on another, as per the rules of Mantiq, where they say the afrad or the individual pieces of a general classification, the kulli, the afrad of a kulli, so long as they are under one, then the generalization is correct or applicable to each. For Sayyid al-Shuhada is also an inheritor of the ilm of Adam and also the inheritor of the characteristics of the previous prophets. For this is in regards to the meaning of the word successor of the previous prophets, taken at two levels, at a tangible level and at a metaphorical level. We ask the question, in Ziyanatul Waritha, why is it that the Imam, our sixth Imam, why did he point out specifically Nabi Adam, Nabi Nuh, Nabi Ibrahim, Isa, Musa and Rasulullah? Why didn't our sixth Imam say that Sayyid al-Shuhada is the successor of Ismail? Why didn't he say, Assalamu alayka ya waritha Ismail, for example, Dhabihillah, for example, or Waritha Yaqub, or Waritha Ishaq? Why did the Imam select these six prophets in particular? In order to understand the hikmah of Rasulullah, look at these six prophets. If we start with the first five without Nabi Adam, look at Nabi Nuh, look at Nabi Ibrahim, look at Nabi Isa, Nabi Musa and Rasulullah. These five prophets symbolize the Ulul Azam from all the Anbiya. The Ulul Azam, meaning these five prophets represent or symbolize the message of all 124,000 prophets. Whatever these 124,000 prophets came with, their messages are summarized within the message of these five Ulul Azam. These five Ulul Azam prophets were given with a particular Sharia, but their deen was one. So now there is a difference between Sharia and there is a difference between deen. Time has passed us, otherwise we would have explained it. In either case, the deen amongst the all Ulul Azam was the same, because the deen includes five tenets of religion: Tawheed, Adala, Nabuwa, Imama and the Qiyamah. All the Ulul Azam prophets talk about these five. Nabi Ibrahim, Nabi Musa, Nabi Isa, they all spoke about the oneness of God. They all spoke about the justice of God. They all spoke about their prophethood. They all spoke about the day of judgment. Did they speak about Imama? Of course they spoke about Imama. What did Nabi Musa say when he went up to the mountains? Who did he leave behind as his successor, as his wasi? Harun. Just like the way Nabi Musa had a successor called Harun and Nabi Isa had a successor called Sham'un, then Rasulullah also had a successor called Ali. Just like the way the Jews went deviant because they refused to adhere to the mastership of Harun. Just like the way within the Christians they went astray because they didn't follow the command of Sham'un. Within Islam people went astray because they didn't follow the command of Amirul Mu'mineen. For every prophet from the Ulul Azam spoke about Imama, just like the way they spoke about Qiyamah and Tawheed. For the Ulul Azam represents the crown or the summary of the message of all 124,000 prophets. And the message of all the Ulul Azam then is represented and captured and encompassed by Islam. And then Sayyid al-Shuhada is that successor of Adam, or is that successor of Isa, Musa, because had it not been for the sacrifice of Imam Hussein, then even the religion of the Jews and the Christians would have disappeared from the face of the earth, because the representation or the values that Imam Hussein stood for are the same values that Isa and Musa stood to teach from the original Injil and the original Torah. Had it not been for Imam Hussein, the memory of these previous prophets would have been erased from the pages of history. And Imam as-Sadiq acknowledges this, which is why he says, you are the successor of Ibrahim and the successor of Isa. Just like the way the Muslims mourn for Sayyid al-Shuhada, the Jews and the Christians also need to mourn for Sayyid al-Shuhada. Allah opened the pages of the 10 commandments and you will see that every one of those 10 commandments, Sayyid al-Shuhada spoke about them from the time he lived Medina to the time he was killed in Karbala. And the prophets are fully aware of the fact that it was through the sacrifice of Sayyid al-Shuhada that their message and their efforts remain alive till today. Therefore, every prophet is obligated in terms of shukr towards Sayyid al-Shuhada. This is a very heavy statement. Nabi Ibrahim is obliged to Imam Hussein for shukr. Nabi Isa is obliged upon Imam Hussein for shukr. How do they manifest this shukr? For this reason, our sixth Imam says, وَلَيْسَ نَبِيٌّ لَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ إِلَّا وَيَسْأَلُونَ اللَّهَ وَيَسْتَعْذِنَ لَهُمْ لزيارة الحسين ففوج يسعد وفوج ينزل. It says, our sixth Imam says, there is not a single prophet from the heavens except that they ask Allah for the permission of Sayyid al-Shuhada's Zyara. And there is not a single time except that if this ghaib was to be uncovered from us, we would say from on top of the Qubba Sharif, a delegation of prophets coming down and a delegation of prophets going up, performing their Zyara out of gratitude to Sayyid al-Shuhada. There is a reason why the Imam, our sixth Imam, attributes these values to other prophets. Assalamu alayka ya waritha Adam sifwatillah. Why Adam? Adam is the father of mankind because the sacrifice of Sayyid al-Shuhada encompassed values that all humanity needs to hold. Then the whole of humanity needs to be grateful for Sayyid al-Shuhada. Which is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised Imam Hussein, because you stood up for the values of humanity, so long as the human race continues on this earth, you will find every corner of the earth on days like this chant Ya Hussein. You'll not find a single place in the world without a majlis azar. One of our teachers, we were having a conversation, and he mentions one of our brothers was working in the United States. I think they were in Pennsylvania. He got posted in Alaska, in the middle of nowhere, in Alaska. It was on a medical posting for 8 or 9 months. He says, while I was there in Alaska, he says, I didn't find any community of Muslims or any community of Shia, sorry. He says, I didn't find any Shia community. And he says, the days of Muharram came. And he says, I began to feel very restless, because back in Pennsylvania, we have Hussainiyas, we have Imam Bargas and Majlis Azar and black clothes and commemoration of Imam Hussein, full force. He says, I've come to Alaska, I don't know anybody. I don't know any Shia. I can't find any majlis from the 1st of Muharram till the 6th, 7th, 8th. He says, my heart became constrained. I went to the internet to look for centers. I can't find centers in Alaska. Ya subhanallah. He says, my heart was bleeding for Imam Hussein. I took the day of Ashura off from my work. He says, I completed my amal at home. I cried for Imam Hussein and listened to a lecture over the internet at home, but still my heart was not content. He says, I got into my car and I decided to drive around. Perhaps Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will guide me towards a center that has the dhikr of Imam Hussein. This person narrates that I was driving, I forget the city within Alaska, but he says, I was driving within that city looking around. Aimlessly I was driving. He says, I passed by a house with a black flag. I said, Allah, this might be the flag of Sayyid al-Shuhada. Fi'lan, hakikatan, he stopped in front of the house. He said, let me knock on the door. I will know if they are Shia or not. If I see they are not Shia, I'll probably just tell them I'm lost and I need directions. He says, I knocked on the door and I opened, and from inside I hear the munajat and the nawha of Sayyid al-Shuhada being recited. This person says, tears rolled down my eyes and I fell into a position of sujood straight away. Sayyid al-Shuhada heard my dua. This is the promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to Sayyid al-Shuhada. Every corner of this earth, every continent in this earth will cry out, Ya Hussein. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. If you notice these 5 prophets from the Ulul Azam, these 5 prophets are those who have suffered the most compared to all other prophets. You look at Nabi Ibrahim, he faced Namrud and was thrown into the fire. You look at Sayyid al-Shuhada, the difference being between Sayyid al-Shuhada and Nabi Ibrahim, that when Nabi Ibrahim was thrown into the fire became cool and cold for him. But for Sayyid al-Shuhada, when they threw fire on the tents of his women, the fire cries out and says, I wish I became cool like I became cool for Ibrahim. You look at Nabi Musa. Nabi Musa was persecuted, made to leave his hometown. Just like the way Sayyid al-Shuhada was forced to move out of his hometown from Medina. The difference being that Nabi Musa's family was not captured and his women were not made into slaves like the way the women of Ahlul Bayt were done. You look at Nabi Isa, was persecuted by the Romans, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed for his soul to be, or for his body to be lifted into the heavens. Sayyid al-Shuhada was also persecuted by the government of that time, Yazid. But Allah didn't allow for his body to be lifted to the air. Nabi Nuh, they tell us that when you read in the history, people used to stand in front of Nabi Nuh and throw stones at him. And on the day of Ashura, when Imam Hussein stood alone in the battlefield, narrations tell us that when they attacked, say, the Shuhada from all direction, the people who had weapons picked up stones and threw it at Imam Hussein. For the difficulties that all the Ulul Azm faced collectively was faced by Imam Hussein in one single day. Nabi Adam had a son called Habil that was killed by Qabil. For Adam had the grief of a son that was killed. But even Imam Hussein had the grief of a son that was killed. But where is the grief of Adam and where is the grief of Hussein? Nabi Ibrahim, when he wanted to go forward and carry out the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and sacrifice Ismail, what did Nabi Ibrahim do? He covered his eyes, lest he does not see the blood of his child. Where is the sacrifice of Ibrahim and where is the sacrifice of Sayyid al-Shuhada? One of the hardest things for a father is to see the dead body of his son. Leave aside a natural death which is enough for his grief, but what if a father was to see his son covered in blood? A son whom he has raised with so much love, a son for whom he has aspirations. Ajib, how great was the heart of Sayyid al-Shuhada. The narrations tell us that when the Bani Hashim got together after the Ashab were killed, a lot of narrators are of the opinion that Ali al-Akbar was the first person from Bani Hashim to be martyred, even before the children of Muslim bin Aqil or the children of Sayyidah Zainab went forward. The reason being that Sayyid al-Shuhada wanted to commemorate the beginning of the martyrdom of Bani Hashim with his own flesh and his own blood. Which is why it is narrated that at that time, as the Bani Hashim circled around Abu Abdullah seeking for permission to go and fight, Ali al-Akbar stood in front of his father and he said, "Oh father, give me permission to go into the battlefield." The traditions tell us that the eyes of Imam Hussein were filled with tears and he looks at his son and he says, "Hal azamta ala al-maut?" He says, "Have you made up your mind that you want to die and you want to separate yourself from your father?" Ali al-Akbar replies back to Sayyid al-Shuhada and he says, "Qad dhaqa sadri min ha'ula'i al-munafiqin." He says, "My father, my heart is constrained and I feel it very hard to see these munafiq and these kuffar place a siege around you. It burns me, father, to see you placed in this situation." The traditions tell us that Sayyid al-Shuhada asked Ali al-Akbar to go into the tents of the women and ask permission from them. Allah, as he went into the tent, Sayyid al-Shuhada put on the amama for Ali al-Akbar and then put on the armor for him and he draped him and told him, "Go into the tents of the women." When it is narrated that Ali al-Akbar walked into the tents of the women, there was wailing and weeping from every direction. Here Layla comes towards Ali al-Akbar, she hugs him and she cries. From here Zainab comes and throws herself on Ali Akbar. Kulthum comes and hugs him. Sayyida Ruqayya, his younger sister Ruqayya, is holding the legs of Ali al-Akbar, all of them weeping and saying, "Oh Ali, do not leave the tents. Oh Ali, have mercy upon us. How will we live without you, Ya Ali?" Ali al-Akbar has a jihad to do. He consoles the women and he gives them glad tidings and he seeks permission to come out into the battlefield. When he comes out, he meets his father again. Sayyid al-Shuhada again kisses him on the forehead. He helps him mount his horse and then he gives him the sword. Ali al-Akbar looks at his father and he smiles. Sayyid al-Shuhada looks at him and smiles. These are one of the last smiles that a father will give to his son. Alama Ja'far Tushtari tells us that on the day in regards to Ali al-Akbar, there were 3 times where Sayyid al-Shuhada almost died out of grief. Almost died out of grief. He says one of these times is when he looked at Ali al-Akbar sitting on the horse, smiling at him for the last time, going towards the Maidan. When Ali al-Akbar sat on his horse, Sayyid al-Shuhada recited the verse, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Inna Allah astafa Adam wa Nuhan wa ala Ibrahim wa ala Imran ala al-Alameen. This in itself shows the isma and the infallibility of Ali al-Akbar. Allah, Ali al-Akbar walks into the battlefield or rides his horse into the battlefield. At this time, Sayyid al-Shuhada cannot hold back his tears. The Maktal tells us that he raised his hands towards the heavens and he held his beard and he said, Ya Allah, Allahumma ishhad ala al-qawm kad baraza ilayhim gulamun ashbah khalkan wa khulkan wa mantikan bi rasulika. He says, Ya Allah, bear witness over this community that there has come out against him a person who bears the most resemblance to Rasulullah through his looks, through his talk, through the way he thinks. Ali al-Akbar was a replica of Rasulullah. I don't know how that person must have struck Rasulullah, or must have struck Ali al-Akbar with a sword, because to strike Ali al-Akbar would be just like you have struck Rasulullah. Imam Hussein says, كل ما اشتقنا بالنبي نظرنا إلى وجه ابن Ali. He says, every time I thought about Rasulullah and I missed Rasulullah, I would look into the face of Ali al-Akbar. Allah, as Imam does this dua, Ali al-Akbar rides into the battlefield with his horse, brandishing his sword. He calls out into the enemies, Inni ana Aliyun ibn al-Hussein ibn Ali, wa nahnu baytullahi awla bin nabi, adribkum bis-sayfi uhami an abi, adribkum bis-sayfi uhami an abi, dharba gulamin Hashimiyin Alawi. Ali al-Akbar rides into the battlefield telling the people, I am the son of Hussein, the son of Ali. We are the people who are the family of Rasulullah. I shall strike you with my sword in defense of my father. I shall give you the strike of a Hashimi man, the person who has Alawi blood, the strike of Haydar. Ali al-Akbar rides into the battlefield. The Maktal tells us that he attacked the battlefield through the right wing and penetrated through the wings coming out from the left, such that the Maktal tells us, فَيَغْلِبُ الْمَيْمَنَةِ مَيْسَرَةِ وَمَيْسَرَةِ مَيْمَنَةِ. Ali al-Akbar attacked the right wing, dispersing it, attacked the left wing, dispersing it, till the right wing flew into the left wing, and the left wing ran into the right wing, and they went into chaos, and in the middle Ali al-Akbar came out victorious, while Imam Hussein was watching the jihad of Ali al-Akbar from his tent. Every time he would see Ali al-Akbar fight and conquer the enemies, and you see him brandishing his sword like Haydar ibn Abi Talib, like the way Imam Ali used to brandish his sword, Imam Hussein would feel a sense of happiness, and he would smile and he would say, this is my son whom I have raised. Abbas would look at Ali al-Akbar and say, this is the nephew who I taught how to use the sword. Allah. Layla would look, Layla, the mother of Ali al-Akbar, she would look at the face of Imam Hussein. Every time she saw Imam Hussein, so long as she saw Imam Hussein smiling, she knew that her son Ali al-Akbar is safe. The narrations tell us that that Ali al-Akbar killed 200 swordsmen and horsemen in the battlefield, to the extent that no one was really ready to come down to a dual challenge to Ali al-Akbar. Eventually a person by the name Bakran came. This person Bakran was attacking Ali al-Akbar from the back. When Sayyid al-Shuhada saw that Ali al-Akbar has an enemy approaching from the back, Bakran went forward and he started grabbed Aliyun al-Akbar with his sword from his back. Allah, Aliyun al-Akbar turned around on his horse. At this time, he's in a fierce challenge with Bakr. The face of Sayyid al-Shuhada changed, and there were signs of grief over his face. Layla noticed this change in the reaction. She says to him, Sayyidi ya Aba Abdullah, what has happened? Is my son okay? For Imam Hussein says to Layla, there is a fierce danger in front of your son. Layla's heart begins to beat fast. She says, my son Ali. Imam Hussein says, go to the tent and perform a dua for Aliyun al-Akbar. Indeed, the du'as of the mother are mustajab. Allah, the narrations tell us that Layla went into her tent. Layla went into her tent and she lifted her hands in dua. In a situation like this that is so intense and that is so grievous, with which wasila do you start your dua? Do you know the wasila that Layla used? She lifted her hands. This is the dua of Layla, the dua of a mother for her son. The traditions tell us that Layla lifted her hands in the sky. She said, Ilahi bi'atash Abba Abdullah. She says, Ya Allah, I ask you by the sake of the thirst of Imam Hussein. Her wasila is the thirst of Imam Hussein. She says, Ilahi bi'atash Abba Abdullah. Ilahi bi'gurbati Abba Abdullah. She says, I ask you by the estrangement of Abba Abdullah. She says, Ya Radda Yusuf ila Ya'qub urdid ilayhi waladi Ali. She says, oh God, the one who returned Yusuf to Ya'qub, return my Ali back to me. Allah. Layla finished this dua, and on the Maktal in the Maidan, Aliyun al-Akbar conquers Bakr and he strikes him with his sword. Shaykh al-Darbandi tells us that he struck Bakr like the strike of Ali, splitting Bakr into two pieces. Nobody from Kufa had the audacity to come forward in a challenge towards Aliyun al-Akbar. For Aliyun al-Akbar walked back towards, or rode his horse back to the tent. This is the second time Imam Hussein was about to die, because he saw all the wounds that were on the back of Aliyun al-Akbar. Aliyun al-Akbar comes off his horse. He talks to his father. He says, Abba ya Abba, kad qatalani al-atash wa thiqlul hadid ajhadani. Aliyun al-Akbar says, Father, the thirst is killing me. Father, this armor which is made of iron is so heavy that it is trapping the heat in my body. I'm dying of the thirst, my father. My brothers, when you stand today in your lines of matam, you know what, when you hit your chests, how hot do you become? How thirsty do you become? Oh, matamis, today, when you are doing your matam and you feel this heat and you feel this thirst, remember the heat and the thirst of Aliyun al-Akbar. Imam Hussein says to Aliyun al-Akbar, Ya Ali, be patient, just a little bit more, and very soon you will be quenched by your grandfather from the pond of Kawthar. Once you drink from this cup, you will never feel thirsty again. Allah. And then Imam says, go back to your mother and go tell her that you are fine and bid her farewell for the last time. Aliyun al-Akbar walks into the tent. He is bleeding from his back and from his sides. Layla looks at him and she hugs him. She says, Waladi ya Ali. He says, my son Ali, how will I live after you? Allah, Allah. Aliyun al-Akbar looks at his mother. The traditions tell us that he kissed Layla on the forehead. And he says to her, mother, do you not wish to be from amongst those women who will go to Sayyida Zahra and tell Zahra that I gave up my son for your son? He says, mother, look at all the women who are over here. All of them are going to have this pride in front of Zahra that they gave their children for the children of Zahra. Mother, keep strong. Inshallah, you will have this status with Allah. Layla's tears rolled down. She kissed Ali al-Akbar. She says, go into jihad, my son. Allah, Ali al-Akbar walks out for the tent. He kisses Sayyid al-Shuhada for the last time. He walks, he goes, he mounts his horse, rides into the battlefield for a second time, attacking the Kufan army. The Kufan army is double thinking. The Kufan army is, they do not want to move forward because they have seen how Ali al-Akbar has killed 200 of his men. They attack him from a contingency of 100. The narrations tell us that Ali al-Akbar killed 80 of them until a person came from the back and he struck Ali al-Akbar with a sword just above his forehead. And then another person came forward and shot an arrow that struck Ali al-Akbar in the jaw. Allah, Ali al-Akbar began to bleed heavily. So he hugged the neck of his horse such that Ali al-Akbar doesn't fall onto the battlefield. But while he hugged his horse, the blood from his head started to pour onto the face of the horse. And the horse's eyes were covered. It didn't know where to run. So the horse ran right into the ranks of the enemies. Allah, the traditions tell us, فَكَتَّعُوهُ إِرْبًا إِرْبًا. Every person from the enemies took a chance. One spears Ali al-Akbar, one strikes him with the sword. If somebody strikes him on the back, then somebody strikes him on the leg. If somebody strikes him on the chest, then somebody strikes him on the hand. Ali al-Akbar received wounds to the extent that he could not hold on to his horse. At this time he fell down and he shouted, Ya Abba, alayka minni salam. At this time, the traditions tell us Imam Hussein rode on his horse and took out the Zulfikar filled with rage and anger. He rode towards Ali al-Akbar, dispersing the enemies into two, and reached towards Ali al-Akbar. Allah. This is the third place where the soul of Sayyid al-Shuhada was going to come out of his body. He comes off his horse and he sits next to Ali al-Akbar. Allah, he looks at the state of Ali al-Akbar. He says, my son Ali, what did they do to you? Ali al-Akbar looks at Sayyid al-Shuhada and he's got a smile on his face. Imam Hussein asks him, what is there to smile, my son? Ali al-Akbar tells him, Father, I see the heavens open in front of me, and here is Rasulullah with a glass from Kawthar. He is here to quench my thirst. Father, come with us quickly so that your thirst may be quenched. Imam Hussein's tears started to roll down looking at Ali al-Akbar. He covered the blood from his forehead. He wiped the sand from his cheeks. He put his cheek on the cheek of Ali al-Akbar until Ali al-Akbar stopped breathing. Imam Hussein stood up. He looked at him. He looked at Ali al-Akbar and he said, Ya Ali, waladi Ali, you have left the dunya and you have left all the pain and the grief, and your father is left behind to see this situation. The Maktal tells us Imam Hussein tried to lift the body of Ali al-Akbar but fell to the ground. He tried again but he fell again to the ground. He called out, O children of Bani Hashim, help this father pick the body of his son Ali. The traditions tell us that the children of Zainab and Muhammad came out. They lifted Ali
al-Akbar with his hands and his leg, taking him towards the tent. And all across, Imam Hussein was walking behind the body of Ali al-Akbar. For every 2 steps he would walk, he would fall down. Imam Hussein had his hand on his heart, saying, I will complain to Allah for what they did to my son. مات بي حسين.